I mean, listen, I got it wrong. I didn't think Donald Trump was going to win. I said that openly. I looked at the map and looked at the demography of the country, and I said I don't think he's going to win. But ultimately, you have two choices, and I think if I'm being fair, I think Kamala Harris had a hard road. It was 107 days. It was very hard to build a campaign. She had people working for her that weren't her people. She inherited the Joe Biden campaign. Literally, when she went into the convention, Ryan, she was it said Joe Biden on the platform. It was sort of a rushed thing.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump in 2024, when I was working for him in 2016 during that campaign, he was a very famous person, and he was probably in the top 100 celebrities in the world. When he ran in 2024, he was by far the most famous person in the world. So he had name recognition and name saturation on all six of the continents that have people. And so it's hard. You're somebody that's not well known. Ryan, the day before the election, the most searchable term related to the election was, did Joe Biden? It was an overwhelming mandate and all this other, but he didn't. He's got one member of the House more than the Democrats. He won by a couple of million votes. Great, because most people didn't think he was going to win the popular vote, but not great when you compare it to 16 of the most recent presidential elections. I mean, I think he's got the second most narrowest, if you will, the second narrowest victory.
But in that list, Anthony, you didn't mention crypto at all in that list of three. So, like crypto, we like to think that we're important. We were sort of an election issue or tech. I mean, it was for some people.
I thought that was the first one. I was saying there were three other things
in
addition to her stance on crypto. Yeah,
I want to know.
I think crypto really hurt her.
Yeah.
And I think crypto really hurt them in the Congress, in the Senate and in the House.
With Sherrod Brown and some of those.
Yeah, Sherrod Brown.
So,
the guy Casey from Pennsylvania got knocked out by McCormick.
Right.
It really hurt them.
I think there's a lot of people in crypto that don't want crypto to think that hope that crypto is not a bipartisan issue moving forward, right? And then hope maybe the anti-crypto army is kind of nullified in the Democratic Party. That is just.
Let me tell you something that they did that also hurt them. Maybe this would be fifth on the list. In January of 2021, Joe Biden repealed all of the executive orders related to the border restrictions that Donald Trump put in place. And he said these things were inhumane, and because Trump did it, we hate it, and Trump's an evil person, and so we're going to revoke him. But if you don't like Donald Trump or you think he's a bad guy, analyze some of the policies. Some of these policies are quite good, and that was catastrophic for the Democrats. And what's at risk here, Ryan, Donald Trump likes it. Donald Trump is bad. So therefore, now we will do the opposite of Donald Trump.
100%, Anthony.
You agree with me, right?
No,
so we have to get these guys off of that.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that this is a bipartisan thing. Remember, China and our defense of our industries against China using tariffs was a good idea by Donald Trump. It wasn't embraced immediately by the Democrats, but they now both, in a bipartisan way, embrace it. We've got to get them to embrace crypto the same way. I'm sorry. I overstepped you, but I just wanted to say that.
No, I was just going to agree with you. And I don't know if that's a solvable problem, kind of the whipsaw sort of effect, which is
aid, and you're advising people on what to do or how to vote. Those jobs are not direct power, Ryan, but they're powerful enough.
Do you think we'll get a strategic Bitcoin reserve? Do you think that's a thing?
I do, actually.
What does that look like, do you think? So we had Cynthia Lummis on the podcast, and basically if you read through her bill, that is, the very first proposal is basically keep the Bitcoin you already have. And the U.S. has like 200,000 Bitcoin in reserve, right? So that would be level one. Trump could maybe do something like that and kind of call that a success. Now, going beyond that, actually purchasing Bitcoin, actually creating a Fort Knox for crypto, maybe that's possible as well. But what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, so first of all, I'm very close to her. I'm very close to Tim Scott. They were both at my conference in Wyoming. Obviously, she's a senator from the great state of Wyoming. And we talked about it over the summer. they've got the votes. Haggerty wants it. McCormick wants it.
They have the
But
votes in the Senate, do you think?
I think so. Yeah, there's 53.
Really?
I do think so. Yes.
For like
Yeah.
to her bill to get 1 million Bitcoin, right? That was her full bill,
Yeah,
right?
well,
So keep the
this stuff
200,000, then
this stuff gets horse traded. So you'll probably have 200 won't get sold. They'll probably buy another 4 or 5 further along. But if you're at the stage that I think we're at, where people like Larry Fink and people at Franklin Templeton, Jenny Johnson, and people like uh, Abigail Johnson at Fidelity, and you name the different people that are recommending allocations. And the comparisons are if I say if it's digital gold, my buddy Michael Saylor will get mad at me because he calls it digital property. I mean, he's called me and said, I heard you on that podcast. It's not digital gold. But let's just, for the sake of this argument, let's say that it is digital gold to these people. And if we're at that point and we're in a modern society and Trump wants to make a statement, and we believe, rightly or wrongly, that the Chinese are going to move to buy Bitcoin, and they're going to move to make it a strategic reserve asset for the Chinese economy and the Chinese government. And if that's the case, what are we talking about? We're talking about $70, $80 billion. To put it in perspective, we've got a $6 trillion buying me over the blockchain that you and I can trade and transact with each other and have the network itself, the blockchain, the technology, verify the transaction for us in a permissionless and let's call it trustless way, because the network is something we both trust. It's going to unleash trillions of dollars of capital that can get deployed into more economic innovation. And we saw this happen with the internet 30 years ago. We saw this happen when we broke up AT&T. Again, not only am I old enough to remember an AOL account, I'm old enough to remember being in Europe and being told at the post office in Rome, if I wanted to call my parents, it was $5 a minute. Okay, we can go to any cafe in Rome today and log into their internet, and we can call like George Jetson does, or the way you and I are doing right now. We can FaceTime our parents. And so the world is changing, and the world is changing for the better. There was a group of politicians in the United States that did not want to embrace and accept that change. And they got their asses kicked in 2024. They got their asses handed to them. And so if Brian Armstrong's saying, hey, fellas, you want
to ambitious project yet. Visit cartesi.io/simple and simplify your blockchain journey and start building today.
Well, we've kind of seen where it's going. It's certainly going the pro-crypto direction. Let's talk about Wall Street and crypto. And this is kind of a subtext for your book. You were talking about Larry. You were asking the question of how far along is crypto? How far along is Bitcoin, right? And you were talking about, Abigail Johnson and Larry Fink and kind of Wall Street really coming around to crypto this cycle. And that's part of the subtitle of your book, right? Yeah. You got a little book of Bitcoin, what you need to know that Wall Street has already figured out. Yeah. Let's talk about Wall Street. What have they already figured out about Bitcoin, and whenabouts did they start figuring this out?
So that's a great question, and it's apropos to what happened to me this week, because I was in Abu Dhabi speaking at the Bitcoin MENA, Middle East and North Africa Conference, Bitcoin MENA. And I was in the lobby of the Four Seasons Hotel in Al Marion Island. And I turned to one of my colleagues. I said, do you remember November of 2021 when I saw Larry Fink in this lobby? And my partner looked at me and they missed it. I'm not missing Bitcoin. I'm not doing it.
Paul Tudor Jones has a chapter in your book. What's the chapter about? What's his story in crypto?
It's just about his odyssey into crypto. We interviewed him about how he didn't understand it. It's a cycle. Everyone goes through the same cycle. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I then start to understand it. Oh, wow. This is another commodity. This is a digital commodity. I got to own it. And it's just about how one of the smartest investors in the world, who's a polymath, who's one of the greatest philanthropists in New York City with the Robin Hood Foundation, and how he's a cutting edge 70-year-old, Ray Dalio, Okay, these guys looked at this thing, they did the homework and said, I'm in. And so that's what we did. And by the way, when I was basically the message of the book.
Michael Saylor's on the book too. He's a named author on this book.
Well, he wrote the forward.
He wrote the forward.
He also rewrote the last chapter, which was sort of funny. And I'll say, I can send you a clip, or it's on my Twitter feed. It's pinned to the top of my Twitter feed. He said at the book party, so I read the book and I told Anthony I didn't like the ending. And I said, well, what's wrong with the ending? He said, well, you're recommending a 2% allocation. I said, yeah, well, what's wrong with that? And he said, well, let me ask something. You said in the book it's your best investment idea that you've come up with in 35 years. I said, yes, I did. He said, so you have 50 other investment ideas like this? And I said, no, I don't. He said, well, why are you recommending 2% then? He said, by the way, how much of your net worth is in it? I said, well, over 50%. Over 50%? Well, then why are you recommending 2? And I said, well, because I gave him all the bureaucratic, institutional nonsense. And he said, just tell people that you own more than 50% of your net worth in it. I own 100%, and that most people are starting at 2, but you should own more.